And I know the sound of the speakers going there. So again, my discussion this week is mostly about following a guideline. If I can find it, where is it? No, here it is. Following design guidelines. So many years ago, when I was working at a company, when I was 20 years old, I got my first designer job, and I was working for a company, and I would do work for Westinghouse, was one of our main clients, Consolidated Natural Gas, um, Heinz Ketchup. You can imagine Heinz, yes. Every single one of those corporations all had a design guide I had to follow. We had a book. Westinghouse had a book. It was about this thick on how to use, what colors to use, how big is the logo, all those things were, in a guideline. So, of course, I don't have those guidelines online, but what I do have is, of course, the National Park Service one. And so following a design guideline is something that you're probably going to run into in the future, and something you should consider thinking about before you start doing a job. What do I need to follow, especially if it's for a corporation or something like that? And I don't know why my PDF did not open. Where is my PDF? It went on there. So the whole national, if you've ever been to a national park, of course, they all have, the little brochure is all the same, right?
Yeah.
They all have this black with white text, a black bar with white text, and it's a guideline, and they all follow them. And so here's the national park guideline. You can see it's pretty big. They talk about, how to do the design identity, and how to use the logo, the size of the logo, the font that you use, and everything. This is the font I use at Circon sometimes too. So, following a guideline is very important. And so you can read this and look through it. They talk a lot about different sizes and how to print something and all that. So this is a guideline that I found online from the National Park Service on how to make a brochure for a specific national park. And so, and the reason why I kind of talk about it now is I want you to follow, we're going to make a Wired card for a subscription card for the Wired magazine. And the Wired magazine follows a guideline. And in fact, I have some videos. I'm not going to show them to you, but you can watch the videos here. This is the guy. This is one of the lead designers there at Wired magazine. He talks about their guideline and how they follow a guide and how they come up with their magazine. So you should watch that. And we're not going to watch it in class. Sharks are done. No more sharks to watch anyway. Right? So you should watch these videos. They talk about following a guide and how they come up with a guide. So if you could watch that, that would be great. In addition, the reason why we do that is if we look at, and let's go to Google. I didn't bring any Wired cards in, even though in my other room we have a whole cabinet full. Yes. So if we look at of course, the Wired magazine, let's talk about their design guidelines. One of the things that they all follow, and I want you to follow, this is the reason why I'm talking about this now, is I'm going to want you to make a subscription card. And we can do it kind of quickly, but you just got to follow their guidelines. You can see how their logo is, where they have a W with the graphic behind it, an I, another R, E, and D, and they kind of follow that throughout, changing it a little bit, but following it throughout. Sometimes the image is on top, sometimes it's, they often do that. They also have these dotted lines that go along the side. When we do that, we're going to be using something called evenly distribute, so our stuff is evenly spaced. Again, if you look, then you can change the font. This is like a sans serif, and this is a serif font. This is a sans serif font. It's not necessarily the font; it's the way that they use the logo or their title, and following how they have the square with the font. Understand what I'm saying? In addition, the subscription cards have you'll see this is a common card. This is what they look like. They're all pretty much the same, but they all have, sometimes they have a little graphic on there. Sometimes they tell you, 1 year, 12 issues for $12, and so on. So you can vary these a little bit, but make sure you follow the logo the way it should be. And actually, this is one of my student ones, I think, right there. Yes, that is one of my student ones, eh? That wasn't the best one. This is one of my student ones. I think this is one of my student ones here, too. Yeah. I think this is one of my student ones for sure, yeah. I think so. That looks familiar. Yeah, this is one of our students, I think. Yeah, from 2004. Okay, well, whatever. I'm going to get started. So again, I'm going to want you to do a front and a back. Okay, the back is usually black and white. And again, we do it kind of quickly. It's not that big a deal, but the most important thing to think about is how to follow a guide and how to align things properly. And look through some samples. I can go down to my other room and get some samples if you would like. So let's get started. First thing is size. Again, the size of the card is, I think, 3 by 5. Okay, 3 inches by 5 inches. And plus, we have a front and a back, so you use 2 artboards. So how do I prepare that ahead of time? Well, in the File New window, you'll notice the first option says number of artboards here at the top. We can put in 2. Oops, you can make another one later if you forget to do that, but you can put in 2. Then you could type in, I think it's 3 by 5. So the width is going to be 5. The height is going to be 3. I'm using inches over here as my measurement. And since it's something that's going to be printed, I'm going to use CMYK as the color mode. And when I hit OK, it'll give me 2 artboards. Okay. Now, the artboard is something that is kind of new when it came out around CS4. I think is when they started the artboard, probably about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And it's the ability to print, of course, multiple pages. Almost an artboard is like a page. When you export, you can export out both artboards together, or you can export out individual artboards. So all these things can be customized how you export it out. First thing I like to do is actually make a pattern. A lot of if you looked at some of the cards, if you looked at them, there's a lot of patterns in there. That's why I passed out. Some of them have patterns. Okay, this one doesn't have a pattern, but this one does. So I like to make a subtle pattern in the background. Again, one way to make patterns that I have found is to use the blend tool, this one right here. So a nice background might be going from one color to another color. So instead of using the gradient tool, you can make a kind of pattern background using something like a line. And it doesn't have to be a straight line. I'm going to make mine a little curvy. So I'm going to go and make a curvy line if I can find the pencil tool. And I'm going to draw kind of a curvy line like that. And it's just going to have no fill, but it will have a stroke with a color. And I'm going to change the thickness a little bit like that. And I want it to be smooth. If you remember from last class, we learned how to smooth a line out. If you go under Object, Path, do you remember using the Simplify? I think I demonstrated that last class, the Simplify. So you notice when I drew with the pencil tool, I put a lot of dots down there, and it's kind of a rough. I want it to be kind of a smooth, kind of curvy line. And I can go to Simplify or draw it over again, maybe. What's it? So again, remember I drew it and it was kind of rough, and I think I demonstrated this last time to smooth it out. So I'm going to make it kind of light. Then to duplicate it, I can duplicate it. I'm going to duplicate it. Kind of like that. And then I'm going to change that color a little bit. And then I'm going to blend them together using the blending tool. So there's a lot of things, and I think I've demonstrated the blending tool before, but if you have never tried the blending tool, and let me get these a little bit different color. I do like that color, but maybe a little redder. There we go. Is it different? Yeah, it's a little different. I'm going to make it a little bigger too. So I'm going to blend these together, and so if you looked at the sample art that I was throwing around, you'll see that you could have some lines and things like that. It's easy to make lines using this tool right here, the blending tool. And by using the blending tool, I can click on one and then click on the other dot, and it'll blend them together. But this is kind of, it looks like a gradient, doesn't it? So in order to get the effect that I want is not necessarily a gradient. What I want it to be is more of kind of a graphic element that has lines to it. You can adjust how many points are in this blend that I made here by going into the blend options here and changing it from smooth color to specified steps, and then you can specify, you know, maybe 6, and you can get kind of a pattern like that, or you can specify a little bit more. I'm actually going to go with double this, probably about 15.
Blend options, how did you get the blend options?
It's the tool here in the toolbar right here.
Yeah.
And then you click on 2 points on an object and it'll blend between them. And to adjust the amount of blending is you double click on the tool even after you've done it, and you can specify. I'm going to specify 25. How about preview? Let's see if that, that's almost there. Let me say 27. Somewhat like that. So what I'm looking for is I want to have a nice kind of blend that has some shapes to it. I don't know, something that's a little bit too much. I thought we put 23. There we go, something like that. You see a little bit of background coming through. Maybe we even give it a background color behind there. Then I can also draw another line. I can draw another line over here. Smooth that out. Where's my smoother? Smooth, 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 smooth. And let's give that a color. And I can blend again. I can blend this again from this one to this one. And no shift. You just click on the point from one object to another object and it'll blend it. Yeah. Okay, so you can get some nice sort of pattern looking things like that very easily by using the, and I'm going to rotate this a little bit so it fits on my artboard. There we go.
Are you recording this one?
Yes, I'm recording it. Okay, so you can get some cool looking pattern things easily by using the blend tool, which is this one right here. And then, so if this is going to be my background to my wired card, it's a little bit too dramatic right now. Plus, I want to chop off all the outside things. If you remember how to chop off things, I can put a rectangle around it, and how can I clip it? Using something called a clipping mask. And so I can select, give this a fill. So I'm going to select both of them and then go under, if you remember how to cut things out, is the clipping mask. It's under Object, Clipping Mask, Make. There we go. Okay, so here's my background for my wired subscription card. Again, cutting out the background using a clipping mask. You can see the clipping mask over here. With this blend, I'm going to tone that down even more. Where is my transparency. And let me tone this down just a little bit so it's not so, it's too late. I can't change it because I can't change it, can I? There we go. Yeah, I can change it a little bit. Okay. Oh, you can barely see that. I'm just toning it down so it's not so dramatic in the background. But I wanted some kind of, can you see a pattern back there? Yeah. Okay. So I wanted some kind of pattern to make the background a little more interesting. One way to do that, again, is using the blending tool. And the blending tool can blend between there. I just use lines like that just to blend too. It's more colorful on my screen than it is on there. Okay, next again is the logo itself. If you remember, the Wired magazine has a logo. So again, you can type in your text. I'm going to type in my text. And I'm going to change that font so it's a little bit more interesting font. Now, the font is not that important. If you remember in the samples that we looked at, what was more important is that you put a square behind the W and it's offset by the letter, right? And then there's the I, and then the R has the square behind it and it's offset by the thing. That's more important than the actual font you use. So I'm just going to use this kind of typewriter font because it has a kind of feel that it does if you've looked at some of the samples. Again, you can look online. If you look at some of the samples, you can see them here. Oh, here's another one of my students maybe. Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is one of my students, this one as well. So if you want to see samples from previous classes, just go type in Wired subscription card. This is a student sample. We've been doing this a couple of years, I'm sorry. So again, making sure that the logo has a certain look. So I'm going to split this text up. You don't have to use the text as it is. Remember, to turn your text into an object is under Type. Create outlines. We'll convert it into an object, right? And I'm going to kind of object ungroup them so I can move them around. Again, I'm going to put a square behind this one. And of course move that around backwards. And then maybe give that a color. Oops, gotta move it backwards even more. And then make this one white. So I have that. I can keep this kind of black maybe. And then make a rectangle for this one. Make that one red. Move that around to the back. Make the R white. And I have a video from last semester where I made these gradients instead of solid. So you can use gradients behind the rectangle. You don't have to use it solid. And then the last one, of course, is this one. And I'm going to change that color as well. Oops, I didn't want that. Eyedropper. And so I have my kind of logo following their style, right? Following their style. And I'm going to put it at the top of my subscription card. I'm going to group it all together. And I'm going to send it to the front. And I'm going to put it in my upper corner. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about putting a dotted line that goes all the way around the object. So in order to do a dotted line, I'm going to put a dotted line all the way around my card. I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and I'm going to have no fill, but I'm going to have a black kind of stroke. And I'm going to kind of draw a rectangle here that goes all the way around. And I'm going to change the thickness of that, and then I'm going to make it a dotted line. In order to make it a dotted line, if you go into the stroke pop-up window under stroke, you'll notice there's actually a option for a dotted line. If I could find my stroke pop-up menu, where's stroke? Somewhere over here. Here it is. So in the stroke pop-up window, you can actually adjust. Right now it only says wait, right? That's not giving me a lot of information. But what you can do is you can go into the pop-up window here and say show options. It's in the upper right corner. All these little windows that you might see, there's usually some more options. Again, it's this little dotted kind of lines in the upper corner. If you click on that, you can say show options, and it'll give you all kinds of options. How the angles of the edges of your corners meet. You can add a dash by clicking here, and by default it kind of gives you 12 point. You can use this to adjust the space between the dashes. In addition, it kind of gives you a nice even edge. This one will align it. If you choose this one, the edges are not perfect. But if you choose this one, the edges will be perfect, and by default it does that. But you can get yourself a nice dotted line that goes around your object by making a rectangle, and then using that rectangle under the stroke options you can have a dashed line. And so I'm going to move my thing around. There we go. So I have a nice sort of top to my subscription card going on right there. Let me lock some of this stuff so I don't mess it up. Okay. So again, I made a kind of a pattern background, kind of light, so I can put stuff over top of it. I add a logo, make sure I'm following the guidelines of the Wired magazine cover, as well as a dashed line that goes around my card. Next thing I'm going to do is, of course, they usually have either an image of a magazine on the front. If you look at some of the subscription cards, you can see, you know, like this one has an image on the front and so on. So we can go and steal an image. This one might look nice because it has red to it already, right? So maybe I'll steal this one and paste it right into my but it has a bunch of extra white space, doesn't it? And it's not very high quality. So let's delete that. Okay, that's not very good. We need to find something that has a lot of quality to it. Again, if you're searching on Google, and you can go to Tools, right? And under Tools, or not Tools, I meant, yeah, Tools, Size, right? And you can choose a large. That'll give you a higher quality one, right? So if you're looking for higher quality images, a good place to do that is in Google searches. You can go Tools, and then it gives you a size. And so I want one with kind of a red. Oh, this one looks pretty good, but it's not very high quality. I want something that's really good quality. This one's somewhat. This one's nice and colorful. This one has the red that kind of fits with my look, doesn't it? There we go. I'm going to steal this one. Following the color matching, right? Because I made kind of red logo. And so I can copy this one. And it looks like it has some extra white space, but that's okay. And I'm going to paste it into my card here. And if it's really big, woo, which is kind of big because I chose a big one, I can shrink it down. Woo! I did choose a, maybe this is too big. I think it's too big. Too big. Okay, now I went overboard. I went overboard. Okay, let me find another one. This one's too big now. How about just say large?
What medium size?
That's what you did last time, I think. Your medium would be better. Or small.
I just went, the first one was way too small. Oh, I like this one. There's a little bar at the bottom though. Oh, what's this one? There we go. There's some riot going on here. Oh, okay, that's not too bad. At least it's not super big. Okay, so we have a card. To make it a little more interesting, we might rotate it like you saw. If you want to rotate, you can rotate your image. The other thing you might do to your image is add a drop shadow to it so that it stands out from the background a little bit. To add a drop shadow to any object inside of Illustrator, you can go under Effects, Stylize, Drop Shadow. Effects, Stylize, Drop Shadow. It'll give you a drop shadow feature. If you hit preview, you can see what it looks like. You can adjust the settings. And it's not very good. You kind of have to type in options, I think. No blur. Nope, not gonna let me do that. There we go. That's better. You might have to adjust some settings to get it, but you can get yourself a nice little drop shadow, so that looks good, makes it stand out a little bit from the background. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the in the subscription card, and I should have brought some subscription cards. I have them somewhere. So you'll notice you have, usually they have a little best deal kind of thing going and stuff like that. An easy way to do things like this, or they have this little, just $1 an issue, subscribe now. So there's a lot of typography that you can do with this examples. I'll kind of move my windows around so I can see it at the same time that I'm looking at it. Really? Whatever. Can't make this smaller. Really? There we go. Can you go away? Okay, again, you can see there's some examples here, so maybe I'll put a little red ribbon that goes along the edge here. And make that red. Same red as this one over here. And maybe put some text in there. So, and then the fonts all don't have to be the same. Oh, really? Okay, I'm running out of space here. Go away. So you can change the font. I don't want American Typewriter on everything. Just want a plain sans serif font. Arial. Narrow. Really? Here we go. Make that white. So, throw in some text. Maybe duplicate that. I often duplicate text. The other thing you might want to consider doing when you're working is if you're duplicating things, think about how the alignment is. If you do center align on both of these things, center align. So I center aligned both of these. This one I'm going to, so I center aligned it, really, damn. Come back here. So again, I center aligned under the paragraph option so they're both aligned on top of each other. Oh, really? Oh. Okay, this is killing me here having to work with such a small window. Yeah, go away. I just want to make this black and make it bold and change the text And then I'm going to put them both back where they should be, kind of right there. Okay, so I got some text. It says just $1 an issue. Subscribe now. Maybe put a little explanation point at the end there. There we go. Make that stand out. Then you'll notice that each card has sort of street name, street, city, and information like this here. So you know, you can put it in a box. Notice how they have a white box for that there. You know, so having a white box maybe for that to have an area for that. And so you can make a white box. I'm gonna make a little rectangle here with the for them to check. This one says, "Oh yes, 1 year, 12 editions for just $12." So we can type in our text next to that. What does it say? Oh yes. And I kind of like it on an angle. How this person has it on italic, and then make it small, even smaller. And what else does it say? 1 year for 12. 1 year for 1 year, 12 editions, something like that. I'm gonna left align these so that they line up left align, and put that there. It's still a little too big, of course. We're gonna have to make all of this a lot smaller. There we go. And I'm going to move it over. And then I'm going to duplicate that by using Option, click, and drag. And then the other one says 24 editions for $24, free shipping. Oh, that's not very good, though. We'll say need more. Let me zoom in here. And so then we're going to do, what is it, 24 editions for $24. Okay. Next I'm going to, and then let me lock some of this stuff. So again, you can lock things inside the layers window so that they don't move around. Right? It's good to lock things. I'm going to lock that, lock all this stuff. Mess with it. Okay, in addition, you'll notice it has the street name and stuff like that. Again, you can make a line. I'm just going to make a line that goes across, and it's just going to be black. And I'm going to change the stroke size. Whoosh, not that big. And then to make the other ones, I mean, there's a couple ways you could do it. You can go and Option, click, and drag. Option, click, and drag. Option, click, and drag. But you know, they might not be perfectly even. Maybe you know we did something like this. My Option, click, and dragging isn't very good. So how can I make these 4 lines aligned and evenly spaced? Well, that's where the alignment features come in inside of Illustrator. The alignment features are very useful. You can bring up a pop-up window. There's actually a pop-up window for the alignment. It's under Window, Alignment. Align, I guess, not alignment. Windows Align. Very useful. They have this in Photoshop. They have this inside of Illustrator or in InDesign, and they have it in Flash. A lot of the applications have this alignment pop-up window. So I can select all my objects. All 4 lines, okay? And so the top of the alignment, this is basically alignment. You want them left aligned, center aligned, right aligned, top aligned, middle aligned, bottom aligned. So you can see that. Of course, I'm going to want all these in the left or center either way because they're all the same size. And then you have this distribute option down here. This is evenly spaced. Do I want them all to be equally distributed from the top of each object, from the middle of each object, or from the bottom of each object? Doesn't really matter because all my objects are the same, but if the objects were different sizes, this might be important. Okay, so right now this doesn't matter because they're all the same size, but again, and then this is vertical basically. So I'm going to do horizontal here. So if I hit the middle one, you'll see what it did was move all the lines so that they were evenly spaced. So a great way of lining things is using the align option here. You can easily align things very quickly using this. Next thing I'm going to do is duplicate this text. I usually duplicate text so I make sure it's the same size and same font. If you start typing text every time, you have to try and remember, what font did I use, what size was that. So this was going to be what? Name. I'm just going to slap these in here really quick. Name. Let me just duplicate these again. You can duplicate things very easily. Option, click and drag. We got street. Option, click and drag. And we got city. And then email address. Okay, you get the idea though, but think of alignment. The alignment tool is very useful. Okay, we have some other things that are over here. You can, I like the little chalk look here for this one where it has the chalk over here. I like the cover price, this little box. And so we can make that real quick. Again, I'm going to use let me just do a rectangle tool. And I'm going to kind of make a rectangle kind of coming out here like that. We'll make it just a bunch of lines. And then, of course, I can put some lines in there. And, of course, you want to evenly distribute them. You can, I guess this is not a line. I guess we can't do that. I'm just going to eyeball them. How about that? There we go. And then we have one that goes across. Let me move that down a little bit. There we go. So, adding, what does it say? Cover price. Oosh, why did I do that? Oh, please, can go away. Damn. There we go. And so this one's cover price. Squeeze that in the box. Duplicate that. Oh, save. And then, why is it doing this to me? And what's the final thing? You pay only. And that doesn't fit, does it? How about we move this line over a little bit? Cheating. Still too big. Now we'll make them a little smaller. Where's my character window? Woo, that's awful tiny. Okay, so. And let's slap some numbers in there. Again, I'm going to duplicate this stuff, make sure it's center aligned. Move it around. Duplicate. Oh, let's move this over a little bit. There we go. So again, duplicating things, making sure they're center aligned so when I write the other stuff, it's directly underneath it. And so this one is $59.99. This one is you're saving, what, 74%, and you only pay $12, right? And maybe make these bold so that they stand out a little more. And then of course this one has this little little swish mark. This swish mark again can be done with the brush tool using and of course I'm going to use the red as a brush, following a color scheme. In my brush I'm going to choose a nice isn't there a brush? Here it is, this one. And then let's give it a little swish like that. And then what else does it look like? Best deal. And I would probably, let's add some explanation points there. Let's make the font typewriter font like the logo. What was that called? What's the typewriter font called? Is it called typewriter? Can't remember. Which one looks like a typewriter? Or I guess we can make it look like it's hand drawn. How about that? Make it bigger. Make it red. And rotate it. There we go. See, you can be very creative coming up with things like that. I just stole it from a previous student. Sorry. Okay. So I'll go into my other room and get you some cards. I have a whole bunch of cards in my other room down there where we do the cutting. And so you can see what you might want to add. Let's quickly talk about the back of the card. If you look at the back of the card, it looks kind of plain. The back of the card is kind of plain. Here it is. We can copy this and just put it in Illustrator. There we go. So we can see it. There it is. And then line it up. Done. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Again, though, you'll notice the text has the same look, right? With a little rectangle around it like that. So we might steal from the previous one. So I'm going to, whoosh. I may make a new layer for this one. We'll call this one front. And we'll call this one FR, front. And we'll call this one back. And I might actually steal the logo and just make it black and white for the back. And that's totally fine, I think. We just duplicate this over here, shrink it down, and make it kind of black and white without color, because the back, usually they don't print with color. So I would ungroup this. If I can ungroup, I guess. I want to actually cut this and put it in the other layer, this layer. There we go. And what did I say I was going to do? I want to ungroup this. Unlock all. There we go. And then ungroup. And then let's make this black. Make all these black for the back. There we go. And so we have our logo kind of on the back. Then they have this business reply mail there. Then you have the address here in Indiana. P.O. Box 377706. And of course I don't want to use the felt font. I want to use kind of let's make this a little bigger. And let's change that font to a normal font. You can use our Arial for this again. Arial. And then we can duplicate that, make sure it's left aligned. And then we can simply, and Illustrator makes it easy now to line things up because of the way that, things highlight as you're moving them around, right? And I forget, where is this going? Where is this going? Booney? Is that Booney? B-O-O-N, is that, how would you say that? B-O-O-N-I-E? Booney? I-A is what? Iowa. And 50037-2700. 06. Okay, very nice, very nice. Also in the back, you'll see you have these lines. Also, you have this whatever. I'm not sure what these square barcodes are for. To make this square barcodes, I'd probably just make a square, and then I would probably we could cheat and count. How many do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? There's 10 of those little square things for the back there. We could make a rectangle, duplicate that rectangle, and then use our new tools that we just learned. What was the new tool we just learned? Blend tool, right? So if I select both of them, I want 10 steps. You can click on the blend tool wherever it's at, which is this one. And again, you click on one dot and then click on another dot, and it'll put them there. Of course, that's too many. And so if you double click on it, though, we said we want to put how many? 10. And if we hit preview, oh, look at that. Perfectly aligned, ready to go. Again, so the blend tool is very useful. And the reason why I'm showing you all these things is, you know, money, time is money. I used to have my salespeople that would walk back to me, Jeff, how long is it going to take you to make this? And I would have to give them an accurate, because then they're going to price it accordingly, right? Often. I remember one time I made a drawing for Westinghouse. It took me 4 hours. And I remember one of the big managers from Westinghouse came over to the company, and they came over and they looked at my screen, and oh yeah, that looks like what we want. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Of course, I didn't tell them it only took me 4 hours to make. And they look at the owner, and he looks at the owner. Oh, how much is it going to cost? Oh, $1,000. I was like, wow. You know, something I drew in 4 hours, then somebody paid $1,000 for. Yeah. So, you know, learning little tricks on how to do things. I think the blending tool is a very useful one. Very useful one. You know, there's a lot of creative ways that you could make this. I think the most important thing is I want you to make an assignment. Everybody in the past, you know, 6 years probably since I've been doing this has made a Wired magazine card in this class. You can do it too. It's not that hard. Just think about it. But my whole talk is about, you know, following a guideline. Make sure the logo looks the way they want the logo to be. And everything else can be kind of creative. You know, maybe things on an angle is kind of cool, right? Adding this little brush thing here, it's kind of cool. And maybe think of the background with the little blending thing I did with the blend tool, and so on. So let me go to the other room and get some cards so that you can see some samples of what cards look like. I'll come back and then we can look at some student assignments that you might have posted on Canvas, right? We can look at some of those because we have plenty of time today, so we can look at some of you guys made some wonderful posters or something, I'm sure, for me, right? Okay, let me go to the other room and get some cards, and I'll be right back.